It isn't the person you're attracted to, it's the pattern. Hi, I'm Amy, and welcome to my channel. Here we discuss spirituality and psychology so you can manifest your dream relationships. And in today's video, I'm going to give you a way to actually detach from your specific person. So if you've been on this journey for quite a long time, and maybe you have followed mainstream manifesting teachings, which are there in order to keep you in the loop of lack and obsession, and maybe you've got to the point where you feel absolutely exhausted. Maybe you're thinking, F it, I can't do this anymore. And maybe you have periods of time, maybe days, maybe a week, where you can force yourself to not do any techniques or not think about this person. But then it comes back around again, and then you find yourself in need and desperation again. And this cycle, I just want to validate that this cycle is horrendous. It's horrible, and it feels like you have no control over yourself. It feels like you're completely at the whims of somebody else, and it's not a great place to be in, and it really, really does a number on your self-esteem. So I just wanted to make this video to really help you be able to detach the need for the SP and understand instead that it's the patterns that they represent. Now, I'm going to go deeper into this video about why this is and what the patterns are, but it is sort of an introspective exercise where you will need to identify why it is that you are attracted to this person. So what I mean by it's the pattern you're attracted to, not the person. I want you to think back about your SP, your previous relationships, and the relationship with your parents. So let's say, for example, I had a narcissistic father, but my ex-husband was also quite narcissistic. Now, I could have thought, consciously, oh, I don't want somebody that's narcissistic. However, subconsciously, the pattern was there for me to fall back into because it was familiar. So even though my ex-husband presented the same way as my dad, that he was confident, he was self-assured, he was popular, he was funny. However, there was a dark side to this. And those characteristics were familiar to me and therefore attractive. So I really want you to consider the similarities between those relationships that you've had. Was there any similar characteristics in these people that you are perhaps drawn to? And notice the feeling patterns that when my father would shout at me for something very small, that made me feel afraid. It made me feel rejected. It made me feel not worthy, not good enough. It made me feel like I had to earn somebody's love. And because that was a familiar pattern, I was attracted to somebody who would have to recreate that pattern in a different way. And that's exactly what happened. I felt controlled. I felt afraid. I felt not good enough. I felt unworthy, not respected. And we are drawn to people subconsciously where we have to experience this pattern again, like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And because that is all we know, it is therefore safe in the subconscious mind. So when I met my ex-husband, because he displayed those traits, my subconscious mind knew exactly how to deal with someone like that. It didn't know how to handle somebody who was kind, who was respectful, who gave me autonomy, who was interested in what my needs and wishes were. So those traits that were displayed between both people were felt safe to me because it is all I've known. When you're considering manifesting your specific person, please be aware of this, because if your specific person is not responding to text messages, if your specific person is saying, well, I'll be with you if you do this, or if your specific person is downright rude to you or argumentative or abusive, consider that this is a familiar pattern for you and that's why you're drawn to them. Do not make excuses for this sort of behavior, thinking that you can change that person, because you can't. It's not within your control, despite what the manifesting community want you to think. You can't change another person. You can change And one of two things will happen. Either that person will change and grow with you, or that person will fall away because they don't belong in your new self-worth. Consider the fact that this relationship ended because you feel like you're worthy now, because you know what you deserve. And the universe and God will align experiences to that, which might mean that your specific person does not belong in that new experience. So how do we break these patterns? How do we stop that pull to somebody who just isn't good for us? How do we even notice that it's just a pattern that we're attracted to? Well, a lot of this goes back to inner child work. What was your childhood really like? What was your experience of childhood? Were you accepted as a child? Were you always working hard to feel loved, accepted, and worthy and wanted? Because if that is your MO, if that is your pattern, you are going to meet people who are going to reinforce that pattern in you. And that pattern stops with you. You need to make the decision that you're not going to deal with that anymore, that you're not going to put up with that anymore, and let go of that pattern and heal yourself by giving yourself the love and attention and respect that you deserve. You do not need to work to feel worthy, wanted, and loved. You are worthy exactly how you are. And another thing that I noticed from my childhood, because essentially I was living with a narcissistic personality for 31 years of my life. Another thing that I noticed was the sheer amount of gaslighting that I'd been exposed to, which meant that I didn't think that I would be okay without that person. It meant that I was always in the wrong. It meant that I was always the problem. Even when I distanced myself from those people where they weren't in my life every day, I noticed that I would do this to myself. I would say I was the problem, that I was unworthy, that I need to work harder, I need to do better, and you don't. Notice when you are gaslighting yourself. Notice when you are making yourself the problem when you're not. And the manifesting community will always have you believe that it is something in you that is creating these unpleasant, horrible circumstances when it isn't. It's just a pattern that you can break. It's not a pattern that you put your hand up and said, I would really like to feel unworthy for the rest of my life. I'm sure that that isn't what you did, but you can break these patterns by going within, looking at what your past is, realizing that that's what happened, realizing that it wasn't your fault, and giving yourself what you need in the moment right now. So I hope you found that video helpful. If you did, drop a comment below and I will see you next time.